the What Now podcast. I'm your host, Darryl Elliott, here with our family, Myneca Ojo and Regi McClurkin. Archbishop Chase is not able to be with us today, so we send our best to him. I hope you had a great week. I hope you had a great weekend. There's a lot that has gone on in the news, and we have a lot to discuss today. But before we get into the topics, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment on these videos so it helps us in the algorithm. We greatly appreciate it. And we also thank you who have been watching these videos. We've been getting some good feedback, and we want you to continue to grow the community as we help inform as many people as possible as to the things that are taking place in our society and what we are supposed to do next. Good afternoon, family. How you doing today?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Darryl and Myneca. Good afternoon. So glad to see you all.
Good,
Well,
good,
it's
yes.
beautiful outside.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's man, it's not been easy to figure out what we were going to talk about today. So we're going to try and cover a few topics. There's a lot going on in our society, and we've had a very, very busy week. And I felt after last night's interview with President Trump, it is very important for us to have a discussion concerning his policies and now his current responses to the things that are going on that are outside of his campaign promises. One of them is, within his campaign promise, is tariffs. But the big lie surrounding the tariffs is the discussion. And now that we are facing the actual implementation of the policy, now people are becoming very upset, and they're very concerned about what the future is going to hold. The Dow has plummeted, and it's just going down. We know that there's been a lot of value loss in Tesla because of Elon Musk and his policies. Amazon was going to also start posting on their website what the cost of a tariff was per item, until he got a phone call from the president, which then caused Jeff Bezos to backtrack on the policy. But it's already out there. The tube, the toothpaste is already out the tube, and I think more people know than they did during the election, and now the pain is going to start being felt. So what I'm going to do is play a segment here. It will be a few video clips today, but we're going to play a section of last night's interview on ABC with the president, and then we'll have a reaction from there.
All right.
The ABC News exclusive. Today marks President Trump's 100th day in office. And tonight, our Terry Moran sitting down with the president in the Oval Office. Terry asking the president about his tariffs, the economy, immigration, the war in Ukraine, and how the president answered when Terry asked if the president still has confidence in his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, after those two group chats using the Signal app discussing military plans involving Yemen, U.S. military jets, and their timing. One of those chats included his wife. The president facing an historically low approval rating at the 100-day mark amid concern in this country over the president's tariffs and higher prices, fears of inflation. Tonight, our first look at the primetime interview that airs tonight, Terry asking the president about his advice to Americans to hang tough and what that meant when it comes to the economy.
Well, you said something a couple weeks ago that struck me. You said concerning the tariffs, which economists say are going to raise prices, you said, quote, hang tough. Yeah. It won't be easy. You said that to the American people. Is that what Americans should expect, some hard times?
I've said that during my campaign. Look, we won a campaign by a lot. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by a lot. You know, we had a tremendous campaign. I said all these things during my campaign. I said, you're going to have a transition period. We've been ripped off by every country all over the world. They're laughing at us. They thought we were stupid people, and we were. And I said, that's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen.
Hard times are ahead?
I don't think so. I think great times are ahead. Look, since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down, many things are down.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop right there.
Thank you.
we're gonna have to address things in real time. I'm sorry if I've addressed everything, we'll never get through the video. But to say that egg prices are down, to say that he won the election by a lot, this is what we call the fire hose of lies. And I think today I'm going to have to go a little harder in the paint concerning these things that are being done. But I want to at least check it as it's being said. So we cannot say that prices have yet come down. And now some economists are saying that already the damage has been done. Okay, so I'm gonna let it play on from there. But I wanted to address that things are not down. I'm sure our listeners and watchers can agree that they're not seeing any material positive move coming through this current economic situation.
Right.
Down just about everything. You know, you don't have the drop in fuel and energy and oil like we did. I took it from maybe $3.20, maybe more than that, down into a much lower number. When you have that kind of a drop, you're not going to have inflation.
Not now, but it's the tariffs, right? We still have 145% tariffs on China. Your Treasury Secretary said we basically have an embargo on China.
Look, you're trying to say something's going to happen, Terry.
No, okay, well,
nothing's going to happen.
You know business.
Terry,
I want to ask you.
I do know business.
Yes,
and
so 145% tariffs on China, and that is basically an embargo.
They deserve it.
It'll raise prices on everything from electronics to clothing to building houses.
You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China is going to eat it.
That's mathematics.
China probably will eat those tariffs, but at 145, they basically can't do much business with the United States. And they were making from us $1 trillion a year. They were ripping us off like nobody's ever ripped us off. And by the way, we have other countries that were just as bad. If you look at the European Union, it was terrible what they've done to us. Every country, almost every country in the world was ripping us off. They're not doing that anymore.
The president.
Okay, so let's stop there. Every country was ripping us off. Last I checked is that we have been able to leverage every country to our advantage. Cheaper labor, cheaper materials, and we've imported that. And because of international trade, there's been more success given to more entrepreneurs because of a greater access to human capital. What do you guys have to say on that one?
Go ahead, Myneca.
Well, you know, this tariff issue is, in my opinion, getting stale in terms of its, in terms of really reaching people. So I have a different perspective in the sense that tariffs are not equated to what it really is, and it is a tax. So it means that anything that you purchase, you're going to pay this additional tax because that company had to pay these additional fees to bring that product to this country. That means in the long haul, it's going to impact us, just as you had said, right down the road, and it's going to impact us for a very, very long time. I mean, how we recover from this is just unfathomable to me at this point with regards to tariffs. But I want to make it clear, too, that people hear with their lying eyes. You know, there are people that believe that Trump is telling the truth and that at some point during his election, which I can't tell you, that he said, oh, there's going to be a transition period. But he didn't really explain what that transition period is. There are people out there believing this is going to help us in the long run because they want to believe in him. But most importantly, they do not want to believe that they made a total mistake in mankind on supporting someone like Donald Trump.
Yes. And go ahead, Reggie.
Yeah, and that therein lies the problem, Darryl and Myneca, because the bottom line is this. If you're on a boat that's sinking and you're trying to get it back to the dock, and unfortunately instead of plugging the hole in the boat and, trying to stop the water from coming in that can sink the boat, you
Right.
just have a couple of buckets that you're trying to throw water out from the bow of the ship. And
Right.
so, long run, you're fighting a losing battle, and there's no way. If every economist has said what has been done already and the pain that has been inflicted already is leading us directly into a recession. There's no turning back. It's like we're getting caught in one of those whirlwinds and it's sucking us right into it. You do get to a point you cross the line of no return. So just watching those clips again, I mean, I really get nauseated because I have never in my life, and Darryl, we're in ministry and all that type of thing. I have never despised someone so much. And I'm just sitting here saying, God, when are you going to intercede? I mean, like you say, we can come to you and ask you anything. But with the tariffs, it just doesn't make sense for what you just alluded to, Darryl and Myneca, because people, yet still, I saw a clip just earlier today of a young African American woman who was just so pro-Trump, saying that how all of this is going to help us. And we have to just, like I said, put our shoulders to the wheel and just hold on and go through a lot of, pain initially. But like Myneca said, none of this was ever said in during the election cycle. During the election cycle, everything was going to change day one. Everything was going to change day one. The war was
Yeah,
going to end
inflation was supposed to come down starting day one.
day one. And as he put it, because he was the only person in the whole world of over 8 billion people, he was the only one in the whole world could do it. And now what you see is, like I said, what frightens me, and I'm not a man who is fearful, but what really does frighten me is the damage, not just what the tariffs are doing, but the relationships with all our allies. Right along with this clip, Darryl, did you see the clip just from last night from the new prime minister up in Canada? Because
Yes.
they are taking a hard stance. I mean, he's taking a stance, and he's letting them know. And not just in Canada, but all over the young lady down in Mexico, over Japan. So
if we're losing Canada, you've done something. And
yeah.
and
we're been like brother and sister for all these years of our existence. And
yes, and what we have to look at, and I'm with you, Myneca. I said I didn't really want to have to broach this subject, but I just think people live in such oblivion from what these issues are and how they affect us.
Yeah.
And I find that out when I'm on social media and I see the level of ignorance that people have concerning how this stuff works, and it forces us to have to broach these topics and, like a teacher, say it 15 different ways for them to figure out what's wrong. Because what we're looking at now is we're still at the beginning of the process. We're still at the beginning of this. Now we're starting to see ports dry up. We're at the beginning of that now. Because what people don't understand, what consumers don't understand, is that supply is built up, inventories are built up to a certain time frame. And then you're going to have to replenish those things. Like you said, Myneca, a few weeks ago, you said you don't see a change in buying, spending and buying behaviors in people.
Right, exactly.
And well, since there has been no adjustment. Say that again.
Not enough, definitely not enough.
Right. So since they have not changed, that means that we're going to dry out that inventory. And if companies are not able to properly project what they're going to sell because of the tariffs, along with smaller businesses now saying don't send it, That's going to disrupt the secondary supply chain, and so then we are going to see inflation because of supply and demand. When you disturb when you disturb the ecosystem of the economy, you're going to feel some pain because of the unpredictable nature of the economy. Because companies are not going to risk overbuying inventory. And China has made it clear that they are not going to be moved on this topic, and they're not going to be bullied with the topic with this. And they're already making alliances. See what happened. What's happened now is that we're messing up our business relationships. So our competitor is doing what they should be doing. They're going to those relationships. They're going to those people that we have disrupted or have made a foul with in the relationship, and they're trying to build a relationship with them. And this is the isolation of the United States that has been talked about during the election, that if you elected Donald Trump.
So they've been watching him. I really firmly believe these countries have been watching him, especially China, Japan, the other Asian countries, probably Central and South America as well. They've been watching this election, and just as we were talking about Project 2025, these other countries who have been through different forms of government and changes and coups and dictatorships, they recognize the signs. They've been watching all along. So I'm willing to bet that China and Japanese alliance that they're forming, or with the Asian countries, they were prepared once Trump got into office. And so I'm not.
And they're older societies. They're older societies with much more embedded histories.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Just like China says, we're several hundreds of years old, and we're just a few. I mean, several thousands of years old. We're just a few hundred years, and so we haven't had that history. We haven't really been tested in this format where it's actually hitting every single citizen in this country. And what I'm afraid of is that what we're talking about in this level of concern and alarm is only really just simmering at the top, at the top of the pot, and it's not really resonating down to people because they believe everything is always going to be the same. That level of not having scarcity in the store and buying toilet paper and hoarding and so on and so forth. There may be a time where even after you've hoarded, that it's such a long-term time. We've always had these very short terms of scarcity in this country and just not having it available. But unlike other countries who, even if they did hoard something over time, it just became scarce as a part of their lifetime. So
and we have to remember there's hardly anybody left here that remember the Great Depression.
Right, exactly. And
so we don't have leadership that lives with that long-term trauma. We don't have leaders that remember the tariffs of the 1920s, or that happened, and how it took us deeper into the Depression. So now you're dealing with a narcissistic, sociopathic, non-thinking individual, just based on impulse. They live based on impulse, because your entire life has been comfortable. You've had the luxury to live off of your impulses without worrying about consequence, like most of us have had to live. So we're looking at a whole set of things that this nation may not has ever experienced, even
Oh, no.
even with the Great Depression.
Right. But see, that's one of the things the psychiatrists, the group of psychiatrists was saying. They said never in the history of any nation has anyone been such a profound pathological liar. No one in history has ever, and everybody alluding to what both of you all just said, these people have been monitoring and watching for the last year leading up to the election. Because people, that's what they were talking about, the people over in China and in
Yeah.
Japan, they were already making preparations in case he did. But like I said, again, what breaks my heart is to see the European nations and everybody else, and like Canada.
Yeah.
He stood up there, I watched the video, and he stood up there and said, we are now, as a nation, we must prepare to all understand, fully understand, that America is no longer the friend of Canada. And so we must govern ourselves accordingly. And he took it even a step further. And we're going to make sure that the pain will be felt by America so that we don't need anything from America. People don't realize here in this nation, the ones who are still delusional and in denial, everything, our manufacturing has basically went down to less than 10% of our economy.
Yeah.
Even on on Monday, I saw
Yeah.
a report about, even like I said, what Myneca was saying about the toilet tissue. The largest, people don't realize, one big company was making toilet tissue for 80% of all the brands that we have. One company
Yeah.
was doing it, and things
Yeah.
like that.
Our
And they
biggest
just
export is services. Our
right,
biggest export now is services, entertainment,
exactly.
things like that. We're not the producer of hard product.
And then he went, like I said, when yesterday or Monday, he went up to Detroit with the auto workers and things like that. And I'm still just, like I said, amazed how people will do anything for a photo op. And I mean, I thought of all places that if you go to Detroit, I know Detroit. I spent a lot of time in Detroit. So they went to some outskirt part of Detroit because Detroit, them brothers and sisters up there have no inkling of desire to show any type of love, respect, or anything else for Donald Trump. So everything they do is staged, and we do know they have to basically, sell tickets or pay people to come in, not sell tickets, but they pay people to come in and hold up these signs and stand back like they support this man. Because Detroit, like I said, my God, is one of the most impoverished cities we have now because all of their major manufacturing
Because the manufacturing is gone. Right.
is
Well, they've been in a resurgence, but this is going to kneecap that resurgence.
oh yeah, but the resurgence has been so slow that they have not even come back 20% from the 100% they lost. With all, I mean, they had so many people. Their economy and unemployment was up at like 80, more than 80%.
Very, very high. Yeah. Very
And
high.
so it's nothing that can be done now. And the bottom line is this: because we're headed toward a recession, the damage will be felt throughout the 4 years if he makes it 4 years. It's going to be, we're not going to be able to rebound because, like Myneca said several shows ago, even if we do start trying to get manufacturing back, it's going to take 10 years to get it built.
It takes a while to tool it up.
You done kicked all the people out the supposed to be doing it.
Yeah, the people that's gonna make the stuff won't be here.
It's crazy to know that we just, like I said, I have to keep saying it. I trust God and I trust our military to be doing things, quietly, behind the scenes to shore up and be able to make ensure that our democracy does not fail. Because when you start alienating your best, closest allies, and now you see Putin has shown him, I'm not going to do anything you say. He going to send that little message out saying, Putin, stop. Vladimir, stop. Putin gets bombed.
I think it's already failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think at this point here, just like you talked about internationally, how we're being received, being literally the mockery of the country. But what the world does realize, exactly, but what the world does realize is that the American people have it in their hands to change this. They can change this. And that is why Canada, when they decided to, when the Trump and Doge decided to get rid of the suicide hotline,
Right.
Canada made a telephone number where Americans could call because they know
Absolutely.
when the former Prime Minister of Canada spoke, he said, I'm going to speak to the American people.
Right. Right.
Because you all, where are you going with this? And this is true. We have to appeal to him because Trump didn't get there by himself.
No.
Right.
There are people that love him and believe that he is going to change the world. He's a demigod. And at this point, I just employ them to beware of false prophets.
Yes.
Because this guy, in their opinion, is a god, and they believe him. They still believe in him. It's a few people that are, well, what's going to happen to me? And they're speaking up. But trust me, what we're seeing on the news is the more hyped up version of opposition, as opposed to those that really support him, that are really moving along their lives like nothing is happening. We're just moving and forth. We're doing that. And honestly, the reaction that they have is just everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. We just move the course. We stay the course. We support him. We'll get him through this. We'll support leaders who support Trump, and we'll get through this. They really, really believe. In my opinion, I think it's already too late for us to change this.
I agree. But you know what, Myneca, the only thing I slightly differ, because I love you so much, you're so beautiful. The only thing I slightly differ is the fact I really don't think they honestly, in their heart of hearts, believe it. It's just that sometimes we are so vested in something, we are too embarrassed that we've been through. And so it's just like the Jim Jones syndrome. Some people would prefer to drink the Kool-Aid and go to their death instead of admitting that they were stupid enough, foolish enough, and crazy enough to be snookered by somebody like a grifter like Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, like I said, my grandmother used to call it basic holy common sense. Boy, you got to have basic holy common sense. And holy common sense tells me that people, when we're by ourselves, when we take the mask off, and it's not what we're doing when we're before the people, and it's just we in our cars at home or whatever like that. I know so many people are sitting there saying, I can't believe, how did I allow myself to fall into this abyss of craziness? Because like I said, to see people, I mean, I look at those videos every day in my little pastimes, because people are still, waking up to the reality. I can't believe I did this. I voted for this. But they did it because they didn't think it was going to impact them. It was okay when it was just impacting the ground, But now directly hitting them, and like I said, and again, alluded to my brother up in the new prime minister up in Canada. I mean, I love this guy because look what Canada has done. Canada voted against every conservative. They voted out every conservative that was running. And
you know what? To that point, everybody listening, know that the midterms will be coming up.
Yes.
Now, when the midterms come up, we're gonna have a. And here's this. Let me be clear on this, because I'm often accused. of being this left wing liberal. Let me say this first. I have voted Democrat. I have voted Republican. I've voted independent. You know what I vote? I vote what my God tells me what's right and what's wrong. And I also vote based upon the well-being of my people, that meaning black people. Okay? But let me say this. we are at a point that we do not have this is not a Republican Party. Okay, let's start there for those of us who and there has been debate as to is this the real colors of the Republican Party, but we can debate that another time because we have to get into history of political parties because today's Democrat is not what was once called the Dixiecrats. These parties have cross-pollinated and gone all kinds of directions. And I've watched where this past election, people who voted for Trump also love AOC. So I mean, so that's a thing. We're in a very, very convoluted political climate right now in some ways, but if we want to save this country, okay, if we want to save this country, we need to vote out every person who supports this agenda, because right now we need, to some degree, a reset. Okay, so let's make that clear. We're at a point that we have to reset our nation politically. I don't know if you guys can hear my phone going off here in the background. Oh, good. But we want to make sure that we in this midterm are prepared to totally go, go into a new era to try to cleanse our political climate. And that means that right now we have to do anything to get rid of any trace of this authoritarian, lying, I'm trying to say this in a professional manner, but I'm going to have to go spiritual for a second. We're going to have to get rid of this lying spirit, okay? we're going to have to.
Yeah, even Darryl, as bad as Trump is, he does have a message. He motivates people. What I'm concerned about the other party is that they are not motivated and they're going the same course that they went that lost the election to begin with.
Yeah.
They're not reaching out to people. And I looked at my ballot and I'm just disgusted because I'm in York County and there is not one Democrat that is running for office outside a Superior Court judge, and I think that's it. But no one in any of our local elections are Republicans or even cross-filed. They're just straight, I mean, Democrat or cross-filed. They're just straight Republicans, the municipal election. So you have the option cross-file. So in my ballot, I don't have anyone to I don't have anybody to select. I'll have to write in the whole entire ballot.
And see that?
So it's something wrong with the Democratic Party, and the leadership needs to change because the message is not getting out. And in Pennsylvania, I'm hearing the same messaging that they talked about prior, the same tactics, the whole type of thing. So, but just like you had said earlier, Reggie, this probably goes beyond political party. At this particular point. Absolutely. This is more something else that's going on. And Darryl, you talked about how political parties have changed over time, and they have, and it's changing now.
Yep, it is.
Now, the Democrats aren't changing.
Oh yeah, and they're still stuck in that same old message and problem with their messaging. But the other part about it, alluded to what Darryl, piggybacking on what Darryl was saying, with these midterms elections, the only way we can get a reset is that the Democrats, with all their faults, maintain or retake control over the House and the Senate. That's the only way we can do it instantly.
Which is step one.
But that would make him a lame duck president for the following 2 years.
Right.
And there was nothing, they can get through because I have to believe, and this is what I'm praying for. Lord, just give me the strength to see November of next year, because I have to believe all of those people who even supported him are now realizing how much they've really cut their own nose off to spite their face, so to speak. That they too realize we have lost too much under this man. Every
In
day,
such a short period of time.
exactly. So if they can do that and pull that off, and because look at it, even alluding to Darryl, what you said with all these rallies that Bernie and AOC are doing, more than 70–80% of those people are Republicans. They're the ones coming out to these rallies and things like that. Because a lot of us, we're sitting back saying,
Well,
like, okay.
can we say that the Trump supporter is what I would consider the lost voter? What I mean by that is we do know that a lot of people who supported Trump also like Bernie. And these are the oppositional. These are the people who are oppositional by nature towards the current makeup of our country. Some may be anti-constitutional. I'm not sure, or some feel that they are the forgotten people who were once Democrats that were pro-union and things like that, but they feel like that they were not served. And then you got the mixture of those who are just flat out white supremacists and racists. So we're looking at we're going to have to resegment our society, and we're going to have to pull down the whole Trump movement, the whole MAGA movement, to the degree of people's perception of what this nation is supposed to be. Because we're being faced as a black people with the decision of how much we I'll say this. I say black people have always believed in what America could be, but have constantly lived with the disappointment of America not willing to become what it could be. And I think that what we are facing now with this right now, currently, the sit down movement of Black America. You know, the sit down. Say that again, Myneca.
Black women specifically.
Yes. Yes. This is the take your rest period of the program. This is the intermission. And the thing is that we are, and this is part of the answer to this whole question of tariffs and everything. We, more than anyone else in America, we already know how to deal with the adversity. What this will allow us to do is to not be so hopeful of what they will provide for us. And we will find creative ways to have our own ecosystem and economy within ourselves, and a way to defend it, because we know what happened the last time we built our own economy. And we will have other ways and means, and we will leverage our international relationships also. Because let's not be lost, let it not be lost upon us, is that we will have ways to form international alliances as a black people. And we have to think a lot more outside the box in terms of what survival looks like for us, you know, as a people. Now, you know, I live in a world where, you know, that I could find myself to be okay because of the world I live in. But if my people aren't okay, I'm not okay. So we have to be better at creating a society within ourselves and find the advantages of the current situation, because there are people right now that are taking advantage of this decline. You know, he bragged about how these guys made, you know, $100 million when the stock market fell. You know, let's understand how to leverage in a bad time as well. I'm going to move us to the next segment, okay? Actually, we doubled on that one, but I'm gonna move us to the next thing. I think what I'm gonna do is I'll talk about immigration the next time. I do want to get into the topic of our African American heritage. So we now see that they have started to move to take out artifacts of Black American history at the National Black American Museum in DC. I'm sure it irritates him every second of the day to look out the window of the White House and it stands there. But however, what I am glad, at least one thing, I will say I'm glad of one thing. They are returning the items to the original owners. So I'm glad of that. I was concerned about that part of it. So and I'm going to play this clip and I'm gonna come on the other side. Okay, so let's check this out.
I'm Larry Miller. Multiple sources confirmed to WUSA 9 the Smithsonian Institution is starting to move out some artifacts from the National Museum of African American History and Culture. In fact, a civil rights leader and pastor said that he was told the artifacts he donated to the museum were being returned. Our Alexis Wainwright has the full story.
Two employees with the National Museum of African American History and Culture told me the museum is moving out some of its artifacts. Now, this news has ignited growing concerns among visitors who travel from all over the world to learn about African American history.
So I'm not disappointed. And it's unfortunate that people don't realize that if you don't know history, you will repeat history's horrors.
Reverend Dr. Amos Brown says he has seen it all. He's been a civil rights activist for 73 years and has been on the front lines of history. But now he feels some of the history is being erased. He received an email from the Smithsonian Institution this month informing him the artifacts he donated to the National Museum of African American History and Culture were being returned. The artifacts included a Bible Brown carried during the demonstrations with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Jesse Jackson, and a copy of History of the Negro Race in America, one of the first books on racism in the U.S.
His honest excuse was because they were under too much light.
And to be clear, you never asked for these books back, correct?
No. No. I called them, told them how unfortunate, how illogical it was.
We went to the museum Saturday afternoon to see the exhibit where Brown, the Bible, and the book were once featured. Do you know where the Bible originally was? Was it over here?
It was right there to the left of the narrative.
But we didn't see it. Brown said those artifacts have been with the museum since it opened in 2016.
We're not going to let nobody tell us what we can't read. And what we can't celebrate is our artifacts.
He also said the lunch counter where the students from North Carolina A&T sat down and started the sit-in movement is also under discussion of being removed. WUSA 9 was not able to independently confirm this alleged discussion, and multiple calls to the Smithsonian Institution and the National Museum of African American History and Culture were not returned. While we were there Saturday, nothing about the historic lunch counter appeared different or altered.
It was all about someone being against diversity.
President Donald Trump signed an executive order in March demanding that improper, divisive, or anti-American ideology be removed from the Smithsonian Institution. That order singles out the National Museum of African American History and Culture as problematic.
Most unfortunate directive, order.
And visitors we spoke with Saturday say they are stunned.
I just feel like that's crazy, and he shouldn't do that because us black people ourselves came a long way, and that's like taking a big part of our culture away.
It's very frustrating. I'm glad I had my glasses on because I didn't want my children to see the emotion that was driven up.
Now, Dr. Amos says this makes him nervous for the future of the museum. We have reached out directly to the museum and the Smithsonian, but haven't heard back just yet. Alexis Wainwright, WUSA 9.
We've done a lot of...
All right. So here we are. And I want to lead with a thought on that, if you guys don't mind. I said that I think that this is a good lesson for us as Black people. We are in a fluid constitutional republic. Things are deemed illegal for periods of time, and things are deemed legal for periods of time. And I think this is a lesson for us. That I think that we should make sure that we 100% own our history. I think that we should, and this is going to hurt some feelings of those that really, really treasure what that museum symbolizes. But handing our history over to those who can decide when to or when not to tell our story is yet another lesson that we cannot entrust anyone to care for us.
Amen.
And therefore, the federalization of our artifacts and the federalization of our stuff, this has now reminded and brought us back to understanding that we were still nothing but what was it 2/5?
3/5.
3/5 of a human being, and so therefore we're going to have to own our history 100%, and we're going to have to own a lot of ourselves 100%, because this is yet another reminder of we are always one presidential term away from what we have what's taken us 400 years to move away from. That's my thought. What's yours?
So I'll start because I don't want to get to a point where we're blaming the victims, because
I agree with that.
Yeah. And we should be doing this, that, and the other. The fact is that if we are continuously treated as if we're subhuman in the 3/5 category, and what that means is I can pay 100% of the exact same taxes as my white counterpart, but I'm only going to get only 75% or 70% of the benefit of a tax owner because of the color of my skin, then I have a problem with that. So when they opened up and created the Smithsonian for African American history, I know for a fact that many African Americans supported that museum. If you go into the museum, you will see all types of Oprah Winfrey. There's a theater for her. Tyler Perry, Shonda
Rhimes.
Shonda Rhimes. I mean, there is support. There are significant artifacts that are in that museum that were contributed by African Americans all over the country. As a matter of fact, I have one friend whose parent or whose mother contributed a violin to the museum. Is actually in the museum. In the Smithsonian Museum. So I'm like, because it's there. I can't remember the historical context of it, but it's there. But to think that you can erase our history, makes it an issue for me, not something that we have to ask you to do. We demand to be a part of this history. And we have to do it, and there's nothing we can do because I think we've done everything by being, loyal and abiding taxpayers, and we have to demand with this government that we be treated in a fair and equitable way, the same way a person is considered 100% human in this society. It's
So
outrageous.
I think on my part, what I'm wrestling with, and it's not that I disagree with what you're saying. It's the understanding that we're dealing with what is right now a unified government that no matter how much we demand and how much we he's not even paying attention to the Supreme Court. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. We're not demanding. That's all I'm saying. We're not demanding. If we
Mhm.
need to, if we need to look at this right now, we have to look at, how are we participating in this process? Like, we no longer can participate on the same level that white people are participating in the process because they're not participating either.
So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to change how that looks then. Like
We have to change how that looks. If there's an opportunity to do that, we may not even have the opportunity to have another political or fair election again because our voting rights may be taken away. But the fact is, I'm not going to blame us because we are the victims. It's not like we came over here, just one generation ago. We've been a part of this country, and this is a part of our country. And the Smithsonian Institute of African American History is the only museum in Washington, D.C. that had lines literally across the whole area for at least 3 years.
Well, that's gonna ruffle his feathers all by itself. I think that goes to the same angst he has about Obama's crowd size versus his crowd size. I think where I'm coming from is that do we what level of fight do we put there versus the level of fight for ourselves? Like, I don't think there's a wrong or right answer here. It's just an angle in which, I tend to view things, and I think I tend to lean that way. Just as a business person of, having to depend on people for my prosperity when I had to get the wake-up call that they were never invested in my prosperity to begin with. So instead of trying to wait for an open door, I went and created my own door, and so that may be the way I think, and where I see how success has to sometimes be independent of someone else's permission. But I don't think you're wrong because, like you said, we pay taxes into the system. Now we can decide we can start making demands and decisions surrounding the whole level of participation that we have in this country, just like we did with Target. So, now Target's saying, we need to do something.
It was a huge sponsor of the Smithsonian Institute of African American History. I was there when it opened, and Target they put millions and millions of dollars into that. That's why this change and about face is really much more interesting.
Right. Yeah. I'm just not one that likes the Lucy and the football thing. That's what really gets me is that every time we're supposed to be getting on a track, here they are pulling the football, when we're ready to kick it. And that's what has always been our history in this country, is that there's always progress, and we end up being the ones that's always having the rug pulled up from under us. And those of us of lesser means or lesser access or whatever have to suffer so badly, and it's so far back that we're taking. That and like I said, I don't think you're wrong in what you're saying, Myneca, but I'm just thinking from the way I think of okay, you got one last time to do this to me. That's how I think. Go ahead, Reggie.
Right, but with the museum and the whole issue of him having the audacity and the intentionality of trying to, like I said, erase our history. This is where, like I said, we need to rally around, like I said, our bishop here on the podcast with us and Bishop Barber, because This should, if
And he'll be on
nothing,
in a few minutes, so I'm sure he's going to have a chime in.
right. But this, more than anything else that has happened recently, should be our rally cry, wake up call. Because once you start removing, and see, the irony is this, I mean, because God, I always say God has a sense of humor. If you're familiar with the White House, the residence quarters face that Black History Museum.
That's why I said he can't
Right.
stand looking at it every day.
Anytime he goes out on that balcony, anytime he looks out the windows, that's the biggest thing he sees. And I'm sure that's what has motivated him to do that. But with that being the reality, Myneca hit on it. It was not federal dollars that built that place. It was all the donations. It was the mom and pops. It's the communities. All I donated. I mean, my family, we donated some substantial amounts of money towards that museum and things like that. So at the end of the day, you know, we have to be just like, now I did find it somewhat amusing that on Monday he suspended and fired the entire governing board for the Holocaust Museum. You know,
Yes, which Doug Emhoff got kicked off.
Right.
He saw him on there, so he you know that was a done deal.
That was Kamala's husband. So he, you know, he's trying to show that I'm not just doing it to them, but it's all about his retribution. This all falls in line to his retribution. So the only thing that makes me really angry, and I try not to be angry, is the fact that we still have African Americans standing up there in Detroit. Like I said, they had their little MAGA hats on and things like that. But when it comes to this museum, I honestly do believe, you know, like you said when you opened this segment, things are being returned. And more than that, his advisors are being told that they really need to take their hands off of that. Because what he is doing, and like I said, I try to be spiritual and I try to maintain my, you know, relationship and be in good fellowship with the Lord Savior Jesus Christ. But I'm telling you, something has to happen because this guy is not, it's like he just gets up every day seeing how much more harm he can do.
And let me throw this in here. In my hometown in Baltimore, we have the Reginald Lewis.
Right.
We have the Reginald Lewis Museum of African American history, which you know, which I encourage people to go to see. I mean, we should take those artifacts and shift them over there for now, or something. We need something that we have more control over. Is maybe what I'm thinking, or what I'm saying, because I think we do have enough. We have enough that if you're going to and I'm gonna let the preach out for 2 seconds. When Isaac dug a well,
right,
the enemy would come and fight with him over the well.
Right.
And the Bible says that he went and dug another well. And when the enemy came to fight at that well, he just went on and picked up and went to another well. Exactly. And it said he repeated that process until he came to a well that no one could fight him over, and he had peace. And I always say to people, dig another well, because what they can't take from you is your power to produce. And sometimes they will engage us in battles that will keep us from being able to advance. And what I said is that those fights came to Isaac so God could move him to where he could have rest. And I believe in a lot of cases is that we sometimes engage in battles that are just keeping us occupied and keeping us distracted from our bigger goals. And I think that we are much more powerful and capable if we are not so tied up all the time with people's foolishness. And because here's the thing, I can, you know, have you ever been in a place where you can believe two things at the same time?
Oh yeah.
I believe that you're right in what you're saying, but I also believe that we're right if we choose another path, because it's the battle we pick, or the journey we pick, because we're always finding ourselves fighting, and while we're fighting, we're losing resource where we could just move on and keep on accumulating our resources and growing. So I think it's a good open conversation, because here's where this comes. And there's another thing that can happen. And the United States says, did we not once move the capital? We moved the capital because we were in the middle of some wars and stuff like that. And that happens. I mean, who's to say we can't? Who's to say when we know we're going to outlast him? That's for sure. I mean, can we be flexible? Can we make sure that we're preserving our peace and our history, our sanctity of self, and all of these things until he's disappeared? Because he's not going to win in the long run.
Joe, I agree too, but I differ in the sense of this. I just believe there comes a point in time that you have to stand your ground. And I do love the analogy of, the building and the moving of the wells. But sometimes I look at that African American History and Cultural Museum as a space. I really look at that. I can't speak for nobody else. And like Myneca, she said she was there when they first opened. I made sure I avoided it because when they first opened, the lines were just ridiculous. But you know what? I've been there about 6 or 7 times, and each time I go, I get more spiritually connected. I get that same feeling that I had over in Africa each time I visit the door of no return. Something comes over you, and it's like I can feel the essence and the spirit of our elders crying on this hallowed ground. On this hallowed ground, we have to stand our ground for this one, because it's not just a simple matter of always packing up and moving to some other place. What I'm hoping is like they did with so many of our communities when we moved from the inner cities to the outskirts of the cities, that created white flight. Let them take time. Let them take flight. Because I believe that location, more than anything else, and keep in mind, it was Benjamin Banneker himself who laid out the design of Washington, D.C. So how appropriate it is, I feel that was one of the things that God did, that was the land that was bequeathed for this museum. That go our buddy, that go our brother. And so, yes, I just differ because I would literally shed my blood to fight to not, go build another well as far as the museum is concerned.
So let me up Bishop on what we're talking about here.
Hey Bishop, so glad to see you.
The Bishop is in the building. He's been out and he was out there fighting today, protesting and out there and doing his thing. Bishop, let me tell you what we're talking about here. We're talking about they've already started the removal of the artifacts from the the Smithsonian Museum for Black American History, and I was starting to think and I'm gonna try and best summarize it. I was saying that I don't like the fact that we allow others to have possession or to be somewhat maybe in charge of our history. And I was talking about not federalizing it, because every time we make a step and it looks like we're going to be we're a part and we're included, then something comes, they want to pull the rug from underneath us. And Myneca and Regi were saying, hey, look, we put money into this, and our people put money into it, and things like that. And we need to, sometimes, in Reggie's words, we need to stand our ground, and that was him and Myneca's feelings about it. And now let me say that before you come in on from your perspective.
Bishop is ready. He's ready.
now I use the Isaac theory of dig another well. Every time we have something, they want to come fight over it. And I was saying, well, we have the power to produce, so we can keep on moving until God gives us rest. And that was part of my analogy towards it. But I will say this before I hand it over to you. And I'll have to let Myneca know she dropped in when she comes back. But whatever the group chooses, I'm all in. So if we gonna fight, I'm coming too, and I'm gonna fight with you. All right, even if I feel different, I'm gonna fight. Here she is. So Myneca, I was letting Regi and Bishop know. I said, even though I may have my opinion of it, but if the group say we gonna fight for it, I'm with y'all, and I'm going all in with you. I'll fight for the museum if that's what I got to do.
Absolutely, we're gonna fight for it. Yeah.
All right. So if y'all say we gonna fight, I'll go fight with you. And everything else. But I'll just let y'all know how I felt, okay? So Bishop, I'll let you come on in.
I think it's bigger than the museum, and we have to look at what is going on globally. That's where I've been all day, is with a global protest against white, westernized, colonizers, imperialists, trying to suppress, forward momentum of people of African descent. I think one of the main things that we must realize is that there is a tremendous fear by our Caucasian counterparts that they are losing power. And in the process of losing that power and becoming a minority in and of themselves, which in reality they actually are a global minority.
Yes.
But what they've done is they've played their game very well and very strategically, and they've pitted us one against the other for so long. We're still saying, oh, Massa's water is cooler, Massa's ice is cooler, Massa's watermelon is sweeter, and all of this other kind of stuff, and we'll side with Massa because half of us are trying to be house Negroes. I'm tired of being a house Negro.
Thank you.
Okay, by any means necessary, our people need to get their act together. Stand together. They've been separating us for so long, dividing us for so long, and that's how they've been conquering us. And this is not just here in the United States, but this is even over in our motherland. We need to get our act together. We need to stand united and send the message, and it's a powerful message. We know your trickery, and we are not standing for it any longer. I think that's the most powerful message we can send right now. Now, with them trying to dismantle the African American History Museum, I'm going to say this, and we have to be realistic about it. Since when did white America want to acknowledge Black American achievement?
Right.
We had to fight for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We had to fight for everything that we have. And you want to know something?
Everything.
We are not finished fighting. We got comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, we got comfortable after the 1968 signing of the civil rights. We got comfortable. And we actually thought that they were starting to be our friends. I'm going to tell you one thing, and I want this to resound in your heart. A leopard does not change his spots.
Mm-hmm.
Black America has to stand united. And there's other issues, you know, with this as well, with a House Negro that went in front of the Senate last week spewing lies to try to discredit a true African leader who is moving ahead without Western influence, without Western assistance.
That's right.
And see, that what they want to do is they want to pretend to be our savior. They want to pretend to be our friend.
Right.
No, I'm not into that anymore. You know, and so this is just another indication globally of how this racist white regime views black people, not just African Americans. What do you think the whole DEI thing was about? Was to they were targeting. They didn't care who else they hurt. They were specifically targeting black individuals. Even though we were the least of the recipients, we've got to wake up. And we've got to smell the coffee. And if we don't do it quick, fast, and in a hurry, they're going to put us back on plantations, back in chains. And I say it's time for us as Africans across the diaspora to rise up, to stand together, and to fight against the powers. To everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. There is a time for peace, and there is a time for war. And we have to understand we cannot be docile Christians.
Oh, Bishop, I'm going through a whole lot of challenge. I'm going through a whole lot of challenges. If anybody, you guys have seen my Facebook timeline, it's getting really messy over there. Dealing with leaders who know that you're living the lie, and you also are you're not acknowledging the truth. And this is not about Democrat, Republican. This is about truth or a lie. And if we deal in this in a manner as if we don't see what's going on, that's where we are really in trouble. Let me throw this out for a second.
Denial.
Yeah, and it's certainly not just a river in Africa, right? I think that we're faced with a lot of decisions that's going to cause us. You know, we say it all the time. Black people should come together and things like that. But I'm saying, in this sense, when I say coming together, that we should really have a true ability. We should have a true summit. We should have a true meeting of our collective minds. You know, economic, spiritual, all of that, and we should have a greater strategy, and a greater understanding of the threat that comes against our people internationally, as you're saying. we should have Africans and African Americans and those who are British Africans and we should come together a much of a greater mind, because we have to know what we should do with our own land because we're letting everybody come in and out there. And then we should know what to do with our rightful land here. That we should make sure that we protect. We should protect ourselves globally than we should than just in the United States. Would you guys agree with that thought as well?
Yes, I'm gonna piggyback off of that with this verse of scripture that was in the Apocrypha. Amazingly, they took it out of the online Apocrypha in the past year and a half. But in the Apocrypha, it says that it shall come to pass that my people who are called by my name shall call for me from the land of their captivity. And I will hear from them, and I will give them that land. We're still stuck in if my people who are called by my name, when the Apocrypha answered it. Okay, it said it shall come to see. This is the time. You see, if not now, when?
Well, see, Myneca, I gotta go on your side now. That bishop broke that down.
There you go.
Because the Lord is promising the land of captivity.
That's of captivity. Absolutely.
Am I getting that right, Bishop?
Yes. They already know who we are, what we are. Okay. And see, the problem that we have, and I blame the church for a lot of things. I blame the church for following after the rendition of religion of the oppressor rather than truly understanding who they are. So when I go into black churches and I hear them every Sunday, someplace, they say, if my people who are called by, first of all, you don't even know what his name is. Second of all, you don't know what his people are called. Okay? So you first have to get that portion. Then you have to do a study of scripture. You have to understand that the Old Testament is gives you things almost in a chronological order. Okay? And if we don't pay attention to what's going on, we're going to think we're someplace else. It's time for us. It is time for us. Number one, to understand who we are. Number two is to stand united against tyranny and oppression. And last but not least is to understand that the wealth of the wicked is laid up for the righteous.
Right.
Okay. Right. They may have stolen, raped, robbed, and pillaged, but dag nabbit, there's a new sheriff in town.
Yes.
Okay?
I think that is the fear. I think the fear is that we have grown. We're almost like what the Bible says, that one day Pharaoh looked up and the people became too great in within the land. That the slaves, that the people. The people of God became too great in the land, and he said, that's when he chose to enslave them, because he said, if we don't enslave them, they're going to kill us. They're gonna rise up against us and take the land from us. But the issue was, they too were a peaceful people. Like, we you can say black on black crime and all these arguments you say, but in the aggregate, black people just want to mind their business. I mean, for the most part, black people just want to mind their business. Right, just leave us alone. And they're more worried about us than we are. And these actions, like why would you go on the offensive over the museum? Why would you go over the offensive with DEI? These are all things that are letting us know. You're telling us something that we don't even need to hear. I mean, we're not even we weren't concerned about those things. We were just trying to go about living our lives. But But if you guys don't mind, let me take a quick break, okay? And I'm gonna take us towards our final topic, okay? I'm gonna leave it there just for now, okay? Because we're gonna come back to it. We're gonna come back to it because this ain't over. All right. So I'm gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna have 15 minutes to touch on the last topic. Okay. So if you don't mind, we will be right back. This is a good day, guys. Good day.
Yeah.
In a world where convenience meets diversity, there's one marketplace that stands out from the rest. Welcome to Firecart, your ultimate destination for all things shopping. At Firecart, we believe in bringing you not just the everyday essentials, but also a curated selection of cultural and handmade products that celebrate diversity and craftsmanship from around the globe. Whether you're looking for the latest gadgets, trendy fashion pieces, or one-of-a-kind artisanal creations, Firecart has you covered. Our diverse range of products caters to every taste and preference. But that's not all. Introducing our exciting affiliate program, Firestarters, where you have the opportunity to earn money by being a Firecart seller or by referring customers through your affiliate link with generous commissions. Imagine making passive income simply by sharing products you love with your friends and followers. With Firecart, it's not just about shopping, it's about building your own success story. And here's the kicker. During our exclusive launch period, you can take advantage of discounted pricing and special perks available only to our founding members. So why wait? Join the Firecart revolution today and experience shopping like never before. Firecart, where every purchase ignites a world of opportunity. For more information, visit firecart.shop. Your journey to endless possibilities starts now.
Make sure you join the Firecart revolution. Our marketplace is gaining steam, and we want you to be a part if you could. We have room for authors, we have room for musicians, and we have room for private sellers, mom and pop shops. We have room for you. So make sure you get in on the Firecart revolution. We would love to see you there. All right, guys. So we're coming up on our last topic. I'm going to play a quick clip. I may not play the whole clip, but I do want to put this out there. Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, dropped to the 144th pick of the draft when he was projected to go no lower than 20th or something like that to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That he was not expected to come out of the first round, but however, he dropped to the 5th round. No drop has ever taken place in NFL history. Quarterbacks have dropped before, famous known ones, Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Famer, Dan Marino, Hall of Famer. They were dropped. They had drops too, but none. And also Lamar Jackson, go Ravens. That's right. But they were all still first rounders. Shadur dropped to the 5th round. So I want to play a quick clip. Stephen A. Smith has something to say. I'm going to just put him out on what he had to say about it, and then I'm going to bring us in to have a discussion because this goes beyond sports.
I'd seen round the world, round after round, all eyes were on Shedeur Sanders, whose name was never called until the 5th round of the NFL draft Saturday, when the Cleveland Browns made Sanders the 2nd quarterback they'd draft over the weekend. The Browns traded up with the Seattle Seahawks to select Sanders with the 144th overall pick.
I just say the biggest thing for us, we live by our board. We felt like he was a good, solid prospect at the most important position. We felt like it got to a point where he was probably mispriced, relative to the draft. Really the acquisition cost was pretty light, and it's a guy that we think can outproduce his draft slot. So I wouldn't say it's any more than that. Obviously Shadur has kind of grown up in the spotlight. But our expectation is for him to come in here and work and compete. Nothing's been promised. Nothing will be given. So I may hesitate characterize it as a blockbuster. That's not necessarily how we thought of the transaction, but we are excited to work with him.
Okay, that was Browns GM Andrew Berry. Louis, good morning. Damian, good morning. All right, gentlemen, I sat on this set Friday, all of us, right, as the first round went, and I tried to look at the positive. Hey, blessing in disguise, maybe he'll be in a better situation. None of us thought he was going to slide to the 5th round. Louis, what happened, and is this fair to Shadur?
Well, Molly, I don't think, look, the draft isn't about fairness. That's really not what it's about. You know, and I think the reason why I say that is because I've said numerous different times, this whole process is very subjective, all right? It's very opinionated. There's human beings who are trying to assess players and their fit relative to the NFL and relative to their own, you know, individual franchises. And that's an ongoing year-long process, multi-year long process, because scouts, even though we're primarily concentrating on Shadur, you know, this year and maybe even last year, it's one of those things where they're compiling a bunch of information, both on the field and off the field, for a number of different months. And then as it gets down to the wire, you know, there's a lot of things that come into it that really don't have to do with your play on the football field, in particular quarterback. And there's a lot of other people that come into the whole thing when you're talking about then trying to set your final board. I think with Shadur, look, I've said this numerous different times. This was not a on-the-field thing for me, because you are not going to ever tell me that Shedeur Sanders was worthy of a 5th-round selection based strictly off of what he did on the football field. What this came down to is somewhere in the off-the-field process, okay, when you're trying to assess someone's personal and football character and whether or not they feel as though it warrants a certain level or a certain price to be paid in order to acquire his services, people didn't feel that way. People just did not feel that way. As I said on Sunday or on Saturday to Mel Kiper, the draft is spoken. Whether we like it or not, the draft spoke. And somewhere along the line, people were not comfortable with the risk that would be associated with taking him in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round.
I'm going to stop right there for a quick second, and I'll pick back up. What Louis Riddick is saying, and Louis Riddick is he's a good dude. He knows his stuff. Former football player and former executive in the league. What he's saying is, without saying it, is that people weren't sure if they wanted to deal with Dion, his father. That's part of the conversation, is that that front officers were chatting about, whether or not that they would want the circus of Deion Sanders, and he was doing an Archie Manning, if you know anything about Archie Manning with Eli Manning, right. When he was being drafted, Archie basically told the San Diego Chargers at the time that Eli is not coming if you draft him. And that has been spoken of some prominent NFL parents concerning directing their children's draft. But when it came down to Dion, there were feelings about that Dion is not going to be allowed to pull an Archie with us. And there's another opinion I have about it, and I'll say it now. I was going to hold it till later, but I'll say it now, is that I feel that this was the one chance the owners feel that they could get Dion back. That since he was a player, now 30 years ago, since he was a player, he was able to be talented, talk his talk, Negro in his place, and do it by doing this with his son. I'm going to pick up if I think this may be where Stephen A. has something to say, and if you don't mind, I'm going to play that, and then we can chime in. Okay, you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
Send a message that said, you know what? You're just not him.
Saying what I'm about to say in a roundabout way. Louis Riddick, I'm going to be straight up and down with you because you know how much I revere you. I completely disagree with you with what you're saying, and I'm disappointed in what you didn't say. a lot of this was about primetime Deion Sanders. You can say whatever you want to the audience out there, to these idiotic trolls all over social media talking about, you know, Shedeur Sanders wasn't that great or whatever. There is no one, I repeat, no one that looked at Shedeur Sanders and even had him less than the third best quarterback in the draft. This is a quarterback-driven league. This guy was considered one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft, and 143 picks came and went before you heard his name. Don't talk to me about football. I don't want to hear a damn thing about football. This ain't about football. This is about something else. And I said that even though it's different, I brought up the name Colin Kaepernick. And why? I didn't sit up there and throw a pity party for Colin Kaepernick. I knew his career in the NFL was over the minute that the NFL organized that workout for him at the Atlanta Falcons practice facility, which was led by Jay-Z and those cats and Roger Goodell and what have you, and he elected not to show up and instead tried to have the workout an hour and 20 minutes away, and he going to notify them 2 to 3 hours before the workout. I said he is done. And I have no sympathy because, damn it, they tried to make it happen because the league had to do it because the owners didn't want to. It's an accident that no owner in the National Football League wanted to touch him. We can use the word collusion. It ain't necessary. They think alike in a lot of different situations. They don't have to collude with one another. There's a universal understanding that this is our league, and we want to do what we want to do the way that we want to do it. And we'll be damned if anybody's going to tell us what to do because guess what? We running the show, and people going to come. They're going to flock to the stadium. They're going to have their tailgate parties. We going to win in the ratings. We going to make damn near $250 million apiece as an owner. Ain't a damn thing anybody's going to do about it. We understood that years ago. But suddenly we engage in collective amnesia here. Hold on, Molly, because this is very important. Primetime Deion Sanders' hands are not clean in this. Shedeur Sanders' hands are not clean on this. If you go into an interview and people thinking that you brash and arrogant and what have you, and they think that they're going to have a problem working with you, that's partially on you. Primetime Deion Sanders going out publicly and stating on the record, there's a couple of teams we might not want to win. And he ain't going there if we going to get him, if they're going to select him. And he's on Tamron Hall's show, and she's like, what if your son don't listen? He said, who? What? Like, that ain't going to happen. You look at NFL teams, along with the specter of people potentially calling for him to be the next coach, you can understand the reticence. But for 143
Stephen A, hold that thought, because you brought up 3 points, and I want Lewis to respond. The first point is the football aspect of him being the third quarterback on everyone. Then there's the Deion aspect, and then there's the Shedeur aspect. So let's tackle them one by one. First.
Okay, I'm gonna table it there just for the sake of us being able to chime in our part. But what Stephen A is saying is that basically this is a lot going on here, right? There's the Deion of it all. There's the Shedeur projecting the Deion within him, and then there is the owners saying, like he said, this is our league and no one's going to tell us what to do. We don't care who you are. And then to me, there's the part of the Deion payback. I'm going to put that out there. I feel in a lot of cases. Now, I do agree with him on one part that they don't have to collude because they do all think alike. They do have a mind meld with each other. So they and just to let you know how much of a mind meld they have is that when what's his name? When Deshaun Watson got a guaranteed contract for $237 million, you know, a truly guaranteed contract. And if anyone knows anything about NFL contracts, is that they are never fully guaranteed. Okay, NFL contracts are never fully guaranteed, but in this case, it was. And when that happened, the other owners went to the owner of the Cleveland Browns and got on him for doing that. So they do have a mind meld. I do agree with that. But I'm going to jump out, let you guys jump in. How you feel about this?
Personally, I think that Deion Sanders micromanaging his son, who did get on television and say, you know, that his son is going to do exactly what he tells him he's going to do. That, to me, is an infringement, and I don't care who it is. If you're going to let an outside entity dictate what you do in my domain, we're going to have a problem. So, you know, dropping down to 5th round, you have to look at that elephant in the room. It you know, that's that. It is Deion, and then, like you said, Shadur himself projecting the same attitudes that his father has proven his time on the field. It is over. Okay, and done with. Let this young man take his lumps, pay his dues, and walk the walk that he walked years ago. Don't go in asking for the moon when you haven't really proven anything yet, because college ball and pro ball are two different things.
Like we say, those guys have car seats in the back of their cars, so they work. They working for something else now, so it's a whole nother world.
And the little yellow sign, baby, I'm bored. I mean, we've got to look at this sensibly. If we're gonna point fingers of blame, we first have to say, okay, the father is a factor that influenced the son to think that he is automatically up here when he's not.
Well, he's not, even at this draft level. Even at this draft level, he is not his father. And in that case, in fairness to Shadur, who is his father athletically? I mean, his father was a top level football player and was a top level football player and a top level baseball player.
Yes.
So, right.
Absolutely.
So who is his father? Right. In fairness to Shadur.
But they're going in with the attitude of, we've got what you need, and you're going to do it our way. You see, and don't forget that Deion actually has aspirations to be a pro coach.
Right.
Okay. So he wants to coach his son and negate, other coaches that are picking up, that are in the franchise that, no, it's not going to happen. You can't do that. You have to go in and you have to say, okay, these are my top 3. Okay. If I get offers from 2 of them, I'll have to weigh. If I get offers from all 3, I'll have to weigh. But if I get an offer from any one of them individually, I'm going to have to really take it. If that's what I'm going to do, if I'm going to be a professional ball player, okay? And I have to say, you have to follow their program, because each one has their own camp. Each one has their own playbook. Each one has their own mindset, their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And if you cannot contribute to their strengths, or not enhance their weakness, but lessen the weakness, then there's no reason to talk. So if you're not going to play by our playbook, why would we want you in our house?
Reggie, what you feeling?
You know what? I wholeheartedly understand everyone's stated position thus far. I just look at it from a militant position. Like I said, I enjoy football, but I'm not a football fanatical fan of football. And my only, differ is the fact that they didn't have a damn thing to say when Manning did it for his sons. They didn't have nothing to say when what's the other guy's name? It was two other ones. They did the exact thing. He even said, "My son is not going to play for these specific teams." They groomed their sons the same way Dion has groomed their sons. Now, when they did it, they were saying, "Oh, that's a perfect father. That's just, he's using strategic, positioning to look out for the best interests of their son." But when a black man has the audacity, now it's not, strategic positioning, it's arrogance, and they too uppity, and they too big for their britches. And like you said, no, they didn't have to collude because they all are those Dixie, white supremacists who even in 105 years, it's 105 years since NFL was founded in 1920, still refuse to let there be a black owner. So I have so much more to say, but I want Myneca to jump back in there, and because I'm gonna have to get off in about 5 minutes anyway to get to the airport.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a thing. Just like Richard said, it's not a thing of just football. And let me say this before. Let me close with this. Stephen A. is just not one of my favorite people.
I knew that was coming.
Right. Stephen A. is just like I feel about Saquon Barkley right now.
Well, we'll just say that we won't share the revolution plans with him.
Absolutely, right. That's the thing. So
Thank you.
With all his theatrical, dramatic impartations, I would love to just beat it. I would just love to go in the alley and just catch that brother. Because I'm gonna close with this. If you're not gonna be a part of the solution, don't always just choose to be a part of the problem. Okay?
Right.
And so it's more we can talk about this. So I digress, and I'm gonna let Myneca go ahead because I'm gonna have to tune out, and I'll get ready to head to the airport. But,
right.
I just, Bishop, I love you, Chase. You're my man. I miss you, Darryl. You're my boy, and Myneca, you're my heart. But this thing, the only way I can look at it is from a militant. Ain't taking no prisoners by any means necessary. To hell with them attitude.
Myneca, I'm gonna let you chime in. We're gonna close out anyway. But Myneca, I want to let you chime in on.
We gotta get this next week.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Myneca?
Oh my God, this whole thing has just been so crazy to me. But at the end of the day, this was a concerted effort, and I believe they colluded together to make sure that Shedeur Sanders was not selected. Everything that I saw including his stats, his opinion, his popular opinion, everything, and it was aimed at Deion Sanders, sins of the father type thing, and and it doesn't even have anything to do with Deion. Deion's a pretty cool guy. Just that he was pretty confident, and they don't like that, and they don't like Deion's rise, and so they can call it arrogance, they can call it a lot of things having to do with Shadur, but again, it goes back to blaming the victim. He was the one that was hurt by it. He is not Deion. He is the one to put in the work, and as far as I know, many of those people have been looking at him since he was in high school.
Thank you.
So, so this is not. This was collusion, and this was, probably a sign of the times of things to go. That there really is no such thing as meritocracy, and really what they're doing is they're validating the fact that it's not about meritocracy; it's about white supremacy, and we're going to get it any way we can.
Thank you.
Well, I think we can pick this up more because we're done with such a convergence of society and locations. Everybody, thank you all so much for joining the What Now podcast. Man, it is hot out here, y'all. It is hot out here. We have so much to deal with. And I'm just glad that we're all in this together. I appreciate our panel, and I appreciate you, our family out there. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and also give your comments. We would love to hear from you. And tell somebody that we're up here talking about the issues, but we're also finding some solutions. So thank you guys, and we'll catch you all next time.
This will be continued.
Right. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.